Alright guys, we're talking Dragon Ball Super again. Today's topic is, will Dragon Ball Super acknowledge the timeline made in Dragon Ball GT? So that's the big issue. And here's the thing, any decent level Dragon Ball Z fan knows this. A lot of people consider Dragon Ball GT not part of they don't even consider it like something worth mentioning sometimes. A lot of the hardcore fans, and this has been the case for many years, they consider Dragon Ball GT as a different universe with a different timeline. At least some of the extremists do. Most, though, even on a moderate level of fandom, they consider GT to generally not be, canon and not part of the actual timeline, because it was fan made and it was created by a different person, not the original creator, Akira Toriyama. Now the thing is, despite that, and this has been going on for decades, there's been debate saying that, well, GT is, it was endorsed by Akira and there was a little bit of guidance from him, so perhaps, it's not completely non-canon. So for any complete beginners out there, I know there's new people just getting onto this train. Just a simple explanation real quick. So there's Dragon Ball, which was Goku as a kid. Dragon Ball Z, which was as he grew up from Frieza to Cell to Majin Buu, and it ends after the Majin Buu saga. GT is everything after that, so all the Super Saiyan 4 stuff, when it turns into a red monkey and then a golden monkey and they fly off into space and all that stuff, that's GT, and many people consider that non-fan made. And then as far as all the other stuff that you might see, like the movies and so forth, those are just movies, and a lot of people consider those not canon either, because they're filler, and just like the Naruto movies, they are just made up. They're not from the original creators' content. It's based off of it, but it's not the original stuff. So that goes back to the question, will Akira Toriyama acknowledge GT and just pretty much do everything he can to keep within GT's timeline? And that's the huge question. So hopefully you know this, but if you don't, after a long time, many years, Akira Toriyama has decided to return, and he has created Dragon Ball Super, which resumes a few years after Dragon Ball Z ended. So it's still chronologically before GT, but still within that timeline. So I think the biggest indication that Akira Toriyama is, at the very least, I should say, acknowledging that GT exists and that he might continue this, is Pan. So if you guys don't know who Pan is Goku's granddaughter, and Pan is also Gohan's son. Now, I'm going to be honest. I really want them to diverge from GT. There's a lot of things that I feel were... I'm not going to lie. GT was not horrible. But, there's a lot of great things about GT. Like, we wanted it to continue. Akira didn't. And we got that through GT. But it just got so dragged on, and it just got ridiculous to the point where the enemies they were fighting were pretty much gods, and they were just blowing up planets left and right, and it was just too exaggerated, and then they just decided to stack on another form of Super Saiyan, which nonetheless, it looks really cool. Super Saiyan 4 looks really cool, but I just felt like it was just way too much. And then, Gohan was made to be so strong in Dragon Ball Z, and he was just always a lesser in GT. Dragon Ball GT kind of did, it did what a lot of the fans wanted, which isn't always the best thing. A lot of the fans have a sort of naive, simpleton perspective and want of what they want the characters to do, and that's usually something like, oh, I want the highest form of fusion, the most ultimate forms of fighting Super Saiyan forms possible, and I always want Goku to win. And then maybe we'll have like some radical fusions and new abilities. Dragon Ball Z did not do that. It had a lot of twists and turns, places where the enemy could have died, but they were not defeated because of character flaws. And then Gohan was clearly numerous times in the Cell Saga and in the Majin Buu Saga shown to be, higher power level than Goku when he wanted to, and it showed the power of a hybrid Super Saiyan, one who's half Saiyan and half human. Now that was never really stressed, so I'm really hoping that's not the only reason I wish it diverges from GT. Another huge reason is just the fact that it's just so stupid if it goes with GT. It's just like you have a short amount of time span between Z and GT to get your whole point across, and then even then, like, you have to sort of wrap it all back together so that it follows along with GT's timeline. Now, I'm pretty sure Akira Toriyama has been debating this left and right, probably every other day, because if he chooses to like diverge from GT, he's pretty much smacking GT in the face and saying, you're nothing more than an alternate universe. And that'll be like a smack in the face to GT. And then it's just like, well, if he does that, then he misses this whole perfect alignment from Dragon Ball to Dragon Ball Z to Dragon Ball Super and then Dragon Ball GT. So I really hope he gets over this and diverges from GT. I really hope he does, because there's so much more potential in this. I know he has it in him. He's shown what can be done. It's really up to him and his level of creativity. For all we know, and I've been hearing rumors that this is true, I've heard that he's already his creative juices have already started dying again. Even though he's had almost a decade of break from Dragon Ball Z, I've heard rumors that like he's starting to just, he can't think of new stuff anymore. And I mean, arguably, people have been complaining. I wasn't too excited about the whole, let's just make Frieza gold and let's just change the hair color to blue on the Super Saiyans and call them Super Saiyan gods. I didn't really like that, but nonetheless, the whole thing with Whis and Beerus, I mean, that was just ingenious. What's ingenious about it personally is their personalities. Not only are they so strong, but their personalities make it so much better. And I think another huge thing that they did with Dragon Ball Super was they made Goku and Vegeta very clearly have a lot of character flaws and power level flaws. So I just find that incredible. Now let's return to Pan and we'll call it a day. So Pan is 1/4 Saiyan, so people are kind of saying like, well, it's kind of over. Like, she's not going to be as strong as anyone, and it's just going to get worse from there. From here, she's going, her offspring will be 1/16 Saiyan. People are hoping that maybe, Goten and Trunks, give birth, or not give birth, but have offspring as well. Again, that's another kind of plot hole that they'll have to plug out somehow. Now, let's talk about Pan. So, Pan was one of those indications that Dragon Ball Super may be following the plot all the way through to GT, because she was mentioned in Dragon Ball Z. So Akira Toriyama himself came up with Pan and decided, okay, Gohan's gonna have a daughter. Her name's gonna be Pan. She's gonna be this enthusiastic girl, and she's gonna be female this one time. The first real female Saiyan that we've seen, which is in certain ways revolutionary. Like, when have we seen a female Saiyan? Never in this entire series, save for maybe the very, very, very beginning of Dragon Ball Z, where we may have seen some cameos from a female Saiyan on Planet Vegeta, but I don't even think that happened. So she's like the first female Saiyan we've seen in this entire series, and we see like a little bit of her as a tiny, tiny child in Dragon Ball Z, and she seems to be pretty strong. Not super strong, but, you know, it's an unknown, we don't tell. And then Dragon Ball Z ended. In GT, you know, a lot of people were just gonna say disregard it. I would personally disregard it myself, but nonetheless, you know, Pan has a definite character in GT, and honestly, to be frank, like, her personality, her character is really like one of the main things to GT. It's like she is the protagonist. She is one of the main characters in GT. She's never made out to be some super strong, you know, Saiyan, which is rather unfortunate. So that's what I didn't like. But other than that, like, a lot of the stuff about her I really like. The fact that she's female, that she calls Goku grandpa, it's just kind of weird, but, you know, still kind of true. And then, you know, the whole dynamic and personality. Now let's just disregard GT for now. So Pan is mentioned in Super. She's seen as this child, and you know, she wants to be brought up, and basically Chi-Chi is pretty much constantly hounding Goku to take care of Pan. Now, my thing is, you know, it's a bit of a toss-up, because I'm not gonna lie, one of my favorite scenes, if not the only favorite scene in GT, is the final scene of the final episode. Pan is like an old grandma now, and she's like 100 years old. She's this like spunky old woman, still in excellent physical shape, and she's like, you know, watching her like this tournament, and then, you know, she hasn't seen Goku for a long, long time. She hasn't seen him for a while. Then she glimpses him in the crowd for like a split second, and Goku's still young as ever. And then she's like, "Whoa, was that Grandpa?" She looks back, and Goku's gone. And that's it. That's the whole episode. And I just find that, like, honestly, I find that so incredible. It brings me back to those days. So many, you know, it's just like such a touching moment. Like, and it really just brings so many emotions to you, because it's like, wow, life is short. Life is short. And, you know, sooner or later we're all just going to be called grandpas or grandmas. Then we're dead. And then it's just like this touching moment where she sees her grandpa for a split second, and then he's gone. So it's just a very touching type scene, and it's kind of sad too. Now, if Akira Toriyama decides to diverge from GT, then he's pretty much, you know, like it or not, kind of like slapping that in the face. Not really slapping it in the face, but just saying, you know, I'm going to disregard that timeline. And that's one of the one scenes that I do like to honor. Now, let's go to Marvel and DC Comics. Now, they have tons of multiverses and, you know, different universes and timelines. The Golden Age timeline, and this timeline, and that timeline. So I think this argument and anticipation and debate about, oh, this timeline's too much, oh, you can't diverge from this timeline, I think it's arguably too much, because look, Marvel and DC, they have so many timelines and everyone's still fine and dandy. It's just because, you know, Akira pretty much has created this whole thing, and it's not like thousands of artists and comic book creators coming up with their own timelines and superheroes to fit into a universe. Um, because of that, I think it's more sacrosanct in a way, which kind of means holy. Um, but and because there's just really just one timeline, the big question is, will he choose to diverge it or not? Honestly, he knows better than I do. I think, for him to come up with this whole thing himself, I think he, of all people, knows better what to do than any of us. As fans, as viewers, we can just hope for the best ride possible and just celebrate the fact that he is back. At least for now. Hopefully, this will continue for a long time. And even to this day, I still remember watching this show on Toonami on Cartoon Network as a child many, many, many years ago. And I loved the deep voiced announcer announcing the end of every episode. Everyone was so captivated about this. I knew so many people, of all ethnicities in America that were captivated by Dragon Ball Z. And it was one of my favorite mangas. I didn't even know it was a manga at the time. It was just a cartoon to me. It was one of my favorite cartoons because for once they had an Asian character as the superhero. That had never occurred to me before growing up in America and being Asian. So that was just incredible. And it's just, awesome that not only has so many different ethnicities, black people, white people, Indian people, so many ethnicities have embraced this, Spanish people, but also that even to this day, it's still being embraced and adopted by newer generations. If you go onto YouTube, which wasn't around back then, but if you go onto YouTube, even now, there's thousands of clips of some of the old episodes up online, and every day they're racking up millions of views from probably, like, you can't really tell based off the comments, but probably a lot of them are new people just coming on board, just being adopted, just adopting some of this. And I believe it. It has to be true. There's a new wave, a new generation of people discovering the amazingness of Dragon Ball Z once again, which is just incredible. And I know that for a fact. How? Because I've seen similar niches where, literally I would go, there's like these kid niches on the internet where there'd be like videos of like, toys or like very childish online games. And for whatever reason, I stumbled across those videos, and they racked up millions of views. And you would look at the comments, and it'd be something like, "Who used to watch this when they were 2?" And then a ton of the comments would be like, "That was me. I was 2 5 years ago. We're all 7 years old now." And literally, I'm looking at all these comments, and I'm like, wow, times changed. People evolve. I can't believe it. These people were 2 years of age, and now they're 7 years of age and talking and, matured, and it's just incredible. So I guarantee you there's a new wave of people coming on board for Dragon Ball Z. I'm so excited.